Hi friends, and welcome back to a new episode of Let's Talk Elvis.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of the things that happened from my side of the story. There's been a lot written and a lot said about what happened to me, but never from my side.
So just a little disclaimer before we start, I do not make these videos to give excuses for any of Elvis's choices or behaviors. I simply add context, explanation, and research into topics that I am passionate about because I truly believe that Elvis deserves it. So today, we're getting into it. I've been saying that I wanted to do this episode for a while now, and here we are, we're finally doing it. We're gonna be talking about Elvis and Michael Jackson today and how you cannot compare the two, and I will be giving you reasons why you cannot. I am going off of one post in specific, yeah, I said that right. I've been going off of one post that I saw, but I know there are multiple because you guys, some of you guys have been sending them to me, and I don't know why it's like trendy now to like, you know, compare Elvis and Michael Jackson, but we're gonna be going off and we're just gonna be talking about why you can't compare the two and what happens if you do. What happens, how you get yourself in trouble if you do compare the two. All too often I hear this statement that if you think that Elvis was relevant, then you are racist, which in and of itself is so harmful. That is so harmful to say that because number one, you don't know anything about anybody that you're telling that to. If a black person likes Elvis, does that make them racist? Like, that's just a crazy statement. But a lot of people are saying that, you know, to preface saying, you know, why Michael Jackson's better than Elvis. Starting off with what this post is saying about the media. So when Elvis died versus when Michael Jackson died and what that looked like in the tabloids and in the newspapers and things like that. So the post said that the media addressed his death, talking about Elvis. The media addressed Elvis's death and paid respect to him. There were barely any articles making fun of him or his untimely death. When in reality, girl, there are still to this day articles and tabloids and magazines and newspapers making fun of Elvis's death and the way that he died, saying that he died on the toilet. Every single time I literally tell somebody that I like Elvis, they're like, oh, the guy who died on the toilet. You like the guy who died on the toilet. That's all people know. Or like, oh, he was like so fat from eating McDonald's. Like, that is what people know of Elvis today. So I'm just confused as to why people think like nobody barely ever made fun of Elvis when he died or the way he died. That is what Elvis is becoming known for, is the way he died. So that is completely untrue. There are still plenty of things now that are so embarrassing and misleading and overall untrue, and it's gross. They're saying the media on Michael Jackson, the post said it made fun of him, addressed him as a wacko or wacko Jackson, and circulated conspiracies about his death. When in actuality, couldn't we say that about everybody? About every celebrity who has died? Tabloids will be tabloids, and they will scrape the bottom of the barrel to push out that gossip and that, you know, drama, because that's what people want to hear and that's what keeps people interested. And it is a sad fact. That is sad that, you know, that's the way they have to get people's attention, but that's the way tabloids work, and they have done it for Elvis, they have done it for Michael Jackson, and they have done it for every other celebrity, I'm sure. So by saying it's unfair how Elvis was treated versus Michael Jackson, they were both treated the same way. There were good things put out about them and, you know, sensitive things, and there were also embarrassing things put out about them, but you could say that for anybody because tabloids suck, and they will always do that. Why would Elvis get the blame that Michael Jackson's death was made fun of when his is being made fun of as well? I just don't understand that. Next part of this post said, Elvis, you know, being racist. The post said he stole music from black singers and songwriters, never gave them proper credit for it. They brought up the rumored crack. Okay, that should answer your question right there. The rumored crack by Elvis during a Boston appearance in which he is alleged to have said, "The only thing Negroes can do for me is shine my shoes and buy my records." The post also says that Elvis was always found making racist comments and remarks with pride and pleasure. He always considered black folks inferior to him. At this point, if you believe that Elvis is racist, that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for you because there's information out there that it's not hard to find. It is not hard to find at all. And you could educate yourself instead of pushing this tired old lie around Until when? Like, when is this going to stop? He didn't steal music, period. And I'm not gonna sit here and I'm not gonna go into it because I already did. This is not the video for that. If you guys think Elvis stole music, please do some research. He did not steal music. He covered music, and I don't remember when that was called stealing. He also gave proper credit. The musicians that he sang their songs also got paid from the royalties that, like, I don't understand how that's stealing. Elvis never took those songs and profited off of them for his own gain. He always gave proper credit. So the rumored crack is exactly what it sounds like. A rumored crack. It was proven wrong. What was it? That he was in Boston and he said that remark. He was never in Boston at that time. That's the thing. Is the year that that article was published about he allegedly said this about whatever, he was not in Boston during that time. So how could he have said that? And the show that he was rehearsing for, which he apparently said this while he was rehearsing for that show or whatever, he was never on that show. So girl, I made a whole video about this before if you want to check that out. I believe it's in my Pioneering for Racial Equality video if you want to hear about that story. But just to kind of go off of this again, there was another rumor made about Elvis like kissing a Mexican woman or something, and it went like this. The article said, while Elvis Presley's popularity in the US was arguably at its all-time peak, Mexico was in the midst of a huge anti-Elvis backlash. And I'm probably gonna pronounce some of these words wrong, so please forgive me, but I think it's Tijuana tabloids called him a racist and homosexual. I'm not laughing at like anything, I'm just laughing that they think Elvis was a homosexual. Okay. After the singer reportedly told gossip columnist Federico de Leon, I'd rather kiss 3 black girls than a Mexican. And a Mexican woman in the same column was quoted saying, I'd rather kiss 3 dogs than Elvis Presley. And then this statement was obviously proved a rumor. Are we surprised? I'm not. Because Elvis would never, and if you knew anything about Elvis, you would know that he wouldn't. But this is how this statement was proved false. The book Refried Elvis, The Rise of Mexican Counterculture, claims that the original Elvis quote was fabricated. According to author Eric Zoloff, Urbe Pompeo of Polygram Records in Mexico City claims that a high-up Mexican political figure wanted to contract Presley for a private party, for which he sent the performer a blank check to fill in as he wished. Presley, according to the story, returned the blank check, so the Politico, extremely offended, invented the storyline about how Elvis did not like Mexican women. He never considered anyone inferior to him. Quite the opposite. He considered himself, you know, he didn't think he fit in. He didn't think he fit in with the world that he was in, if that makes any sense. From a very, early age, he's quoted saying, like, I don't belong here. I'm not like these people. Not in a bad way. He just said, like, I'm this kid from, like, Tupelo, Mississippi that grew up having nothing. Like, how do I belong with this group of like stars? He is quoted many times speaking about his love for all people, including and especially the people who inspired him, who were most often black artists, because those are the people that he grew up with. Many pictures of Elvis talking with, hugging, kissing, engaging with black men and women, attended African American events in a time where segregation and racial injustice was at its prime. Never thought he was superior to anyone, especially not because he was white. As for giving credit, again, there are multiple quotes and sources from Elvis himself, but also from people who were black and who knew Elvis, knew of Elvis, and knew his music. People like Sammy Davis Jr., Little Richard, Al Green, B.B. King, Chuck Berry, James Brown, etc. He acknowledged the fact that rock and roll was around long before he was, which he is quoted saying, rock and roll music was around long before I was here. I just kind of added to it. He always acknowledged it as, the kind of music that he grew up around, that like gospel, rhythm and blues, country, all that sound mixed together to make rock and roll. He acknowledged that that was the kind of sound that he grew up with, that he was inspired by because he grew up in the poor South. He never claimed to have invented it, and he never claimed the title King of Rock and Roll. He always said, Jesus Christ is the king, I'm just an entertainer, or, girl, I'm not the king, like Chuck Berry's the king. Just for one example, which is a huge example because he said it in one of his most iconic moments of all time in the 68 Comeback Special, I'm going to play for you guys a little clip of Elvis explaining that rock and roll music has been around for a long time and how it became rock and roll and how he's just been adding to it and how performers, you know, in that day have just been adding to what was already there. Again, if you believe that Elvis is racist, it's embarrassing at this point. It needs to stop. There is information out there for you and evidence that you can find to educate yourself before going out and pushing this to people. It's lies, and it's so embarrassing at this point because it's like there is stuff out there that could help you understand what is true and what is not. On the flip side, the post was talking about how Michael Jackson was fighting racism, and how he used his music to spread awareness about injustice and racism. Did you ever hear Walk a Mile in My Shoes, In the Ghetto, or If I Can Dream, a song all about Martin Luther King Jr. and racial injustice? Elvis did the same thing. You can say, you know, because Michael was black, he cared more about it than Elvis could because he was white. Elvis cared. You can't just take that away from him. And there's proof and evidence out there that he as well used his voice and his songs, his message songs, to spread awareness. And if you just listen to those 3 songs, there's more out there, but those are 3 huge songs that have to do with injustice and equality and just being kind to people in general. It's all out there. Next was Elvis versus Michael Jackson with young children and young fans, which, again, this at this point is getting out of control and just getting so annoying. I don't know about Michael Jackson enough to speak on this and about all those rumors of him being a pedophile and, you know, being inappropriate with kids. I don't know much about that. So I'm not gonna sit here, girl, I'm not gonna sit here and say, I've heard this, so this must be true, and I don't like Michael Jackson because I've heard this from Google. Like, I'm not going to do that because I didn't do my research on that. So I'm not speaking on Michael Jackson in this part. I'm not saying what he did or didn't do because I don't know, but I can tell you, I can sit here with complete confidence and certainty that Elvis was never perverted towards any children or any young fans in any way. And the information is out there. Again, the information is out there for you guys. If you doubt me or if you want to fact check me, it's out there and it's not hard to find. So I actually made a video about Elvis being a pedophile. I made 2 of them and they're pretty long. So if you guys want to go watch those are out there for you as well. But there are resources out there, and I can sit here with confidence and say that there was never anything perverted about Elvis. The last point that they brought up in their kind of comments, their caption, and then a couple people in the comments were talking about this as well, but they were saying, there's one comment in specific where it said, whenever rock stars, in parentheses, mainly white, do drugs like heroin, it's considered cool, but when black artists develop a drug addiction using prescribed drugs, he's considered an addict. This is true exactly for Elvis. I don't know why they think that people thought Elvis was cool for using drugs. Elvis is bashed to this day for using drugs. And I always say, like, you know, when the Beatles used drugs, when the Rolling Stones used drugs, it was to aid their creativity. And it was like, oh, it made their music like so unique and cool. But when Elvis used non-illegal, they weren't illegal drugs, they were prescription drugs. You know, he had a problem, he considered a problem, and he had an issue, so he used prescription drugs, not illegal drugs. He's considered an addict, and he's considered a mental case. So what you're saying about Michael Jackson applies to Elvis as well, as does, girl, not all of these statements, but some of them do. So in conclusion, just because you're mad at how one artist was treated doesn't mean that you can compare them to another artist that you know absolutely nothing about. They were both, and are still insanely misunderstood in their own ways. It is not Elvis's fault the way that Michael Jackson was treated in the media. And don't point it out to be a racial issue when it really had nothing to do with race. The reason Elvis was Elvis is because he did that for himself. He worked there. The reason Michael Jackson was Michael Jackson is because he worked there for himself. He got to that place. None of them took anything away from each other. Michael Jackson and Elvis had 2 completely different audiences. They had 2 completely different styles. You absolutely cannot compare the 2. They were 2 completely different artists. But you can appreciate both of them for what they brought to culture and society and the industry, the music industry, what they both individually brought, because they both brought a lot. They're both iconic figures, and they both have, you know, qualities and iconic things about them that can be appreciated and remembered in a good way. Don't put one artist down just to raise another one up. Again, I'm just gonna say this really quick before I log off, but I don't know, girl, anything about like the rumors of Michael Jackson, really. I know some things about him, and I know, you know, I just went off of this post. That's what I was talking about. And I didn't say, oh, Michael Jackson definitely wasn't talked about like that in the media, because I'm taking their word for it. I mean, I'm sure he was. But I'm not here to talk about Michael Jackson. I'm here to talk about Elvis and why you can't compare Elvis to Michael Jackson. I'm not here to debate anything about Michael Jackson. I have nothing against him because I really don't know anything about him. So if you're watching this video on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and a thumbs down if you didn't. And if you're watching this on Instagram, make sure to follow me for more Let's Talk Elvis videos and more insight into Elvis's life, not only as the amazing entertainer that he was, but the even more amazing human being that he was. That is all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you're staying safe and healthy, and yeah, I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.